Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of United Talks podcast. Now, did Michael Carrick actually outclass Pep Guardiola? That's the question that's on everybody's minds. Did Michael Carrick actually outperform and actually beat Pep Guardiola? We're going to talk about it. We're going to analyze how the silent conductor in Michael Carrick outclassed Pep Guardiola in the Manchester derby that happened over the weekend that got people really, really talking. You know, now the excitement has kind of cooled off a little bit. People are a bit like happy about the win and attributing it to Michael Carrick's um the fact that Michael Carrick actually coached the win. And I said it in my match review that Michael Carrick actually coached the win. And when we analyze it deeper, we see that the game tells us a different story. In as much as we want to be excited about the performance of players like Kobbie Mainoo, when I'm excited about the performance of players like Bryan Mbeumo, Ahmad, the defense in Licha, Harry Maguire, Luke Shaw, excuse me, Luke Shaw, you know, all of these people actually putting in good performances. We also would not need to not forget, some of the silent things that really happened within the game. Now we're going to give you a tactical analysis, you know. Now, the ex-players said it was a suicide mission to actually go into that derby and that Manchester United will be lucky to get a win. Now, imagine walking into Carrington on Tuesday morning. This is for Michael Carrick. And the building is heavy with the scent of failure, with Ruben Amorim, the tactical failure, just being sacked, tactical savior rather, just being sacked. Fletcher's interim spell actually ended in a dismal FA Cup exit at to Brighton at Old Trafford. The club is out of both domestic cups in January for the first time in 45 years. And then the schedule is just a nightmare. Manchester Derby on Saturday. And just after that, Arsenal. But the focus is on the Manchester Derby. The pundits weren't just, predicting a loss. They were actually predicting a funeral, basically. Roy Keane was talking about the coaching staff being on the beach. Paul Scholes was laughing about the idea of Lisandro Martinez even standing next to Erling Haaland. And the narrative was already set. Manchester United were about to be humiliated on their own pitch. And I already said it that it is a baptism of fire. That's what I said before the game. A baptism of fire for Manchester United heading into the game. But Michael Carrick didn't read that script. He said he wasn't bothered. He said he wasn't perturbed by, the narratives and that people could have opinions and their opinions don't matter because obviously, like, he can read into their opinions, but at the end of the day, it all boils down to what the job that needs to be done on the pitch, right? In just 96 hours, basically, the man that they call the silent conductor didn't just steady the ship. He built a tactical trap that snared the greatest manager of this generation. I mean, a 2-0 win that wasn't built on luck, but on a masterclass of defensive organization, mid-block hunting, and the lethal direct transition. That is it. Today we're going to, we're going deep and we're going to kind of like analyze. We aren't just looking at the goals. We're not looking at the Carrick Code, as I always called it, from the reintroduction of Kobbie Mainoo to the asymmetric 4-2-3-1, that actually neutralized Pep Guardiola's 3-2-2-3 box, right? This is just a full tactical breakdown of how Michael Carrick reclaimed Manchester and turned Manchester to red. Now, we're going to break it down step by step. First and foremost, the pre-match. So we're going to start before the game. So the pre-match war, the narratives, and the Toddler situation, right? To understand why this win felt like a spiritual awakening for Man United, you have to remember the noise around the club. You have to remember the noise around the club. Gary Neville spent a week in a tactical crisis of his own. He went from saying Amorim had to change his back three to claiming that the players were only suited for the back three, and that the moment Amorim left, the confusion was total, right? Was total. Now, you now had the Stick to Football podcast, and then you had Paul Scholes and Nicky Butt, two guys who know a thing or two about winning, were openly on their podcast, I think it's the Good, the Bad, and the Football podcast. They were openly mocking Lisandro Martinez. Nicky Butt's quote was the one that actually stuck, right? And I did a video talking about how they spoke and what the response was. But his was actually what stuck. He said Haaland would pick up Martinez and run with him like a dad with a toddler. That's deep, man. That's absolute disrespect, man. Even Roy Keane on Stick to Football was in a mood of ripping. Was in a mood. He ripped into the appointment of Johnny Evans as part of the coaching staff, claiming that he would basically have been on the pitch. He had basically been on the pitch, on the beach, a few weeks prior to being hired, and that even Darren Fletcher gave him a chance to coach after being relieved of his role as loans officer. This was the environment that Carrick inherited. A club where even its legend had lost faith in the players. They had lost faith in total in the players, in the team, and all of that. The pressure to revert to the traditional values, the Man United DNA, the United way was immense. But Carrick knew that vibes don't beat Pep Guardiola. You need a system, a structural system. And Rem has proven it in the past. After facing Pep 4 times, beating him 3 times and beating him 2 times, drawing once and losing once. Now, let's talk about the defensive architecture, and that's his heading into the game, because we talked about before the game. Now we're heading into the game. We'll talk about the defensive architecture of that game. The first thing Carrick did was scrap the back 3. That's what he did. Obviously, Darren Fletcher already done it and failed with the back 4, but Carrick came and scrapped the back 3. He returned to a 4-2-3-1 on paper, but it wasn't the free-for-all, basically. We've seen it in the past. It was disciplined, it was compact and a very compact, tight mid-block. Now, when City had the ball, which was kind of like 68% of the time, as we all know, United didn't just chase shadows. They sat in a narrow 4-4-2 or 4-4-1-1 with Diogo Diallo and Luke Shaw doing some tackling and all. Obviously, people said that Diallo should have gotten a red card. But at the beginning of the match, basically, both fullbacks already got yellow cards. But obviously, it doesn't change the fact that they were both heroic when the time came. They stayed narrow, forcing City's wingers Dogo and Semenyo into wide areas, right, where they had to cross. But obviously, at some point, Semenyo did not have any space to run into because Luke Shaw was there, and at some point, Dogo too was double teaming on him. And then, when these guys made their crosses, or eventually got into the box, who were the people there to clear? You had at some point Harry Maguire. You had at some point Lisandro Martinez, or most times Lisandro Martinez. You had at some point even the defensive midfielders in Casemiro and also Kobbie Mainoo at some point. You also had Ahmad Mbeumo dropping back. You also had Bruno. You also had, so it's like the entire team at some point had one thing or two to do with the crosses that came into the box or the square plays or any of those passes that came into the box. Albeit there were times when the passes went through and nobody touched. Maguire was the aggressor, stepping out to win the first header. He hit the bar as well from a corner in the 3rd minute, setting the tone that obviously we're not here to play and this is our home ground. Martinez was the sweeper, covering the space behind. It was a classic big man, small man partnership that functioned with a telepathic precision, if you call it that, especially for Michael Carrick's first game. Now, the next part of this is the Toddler strikes back. That's what I call this part, right? The Toddler strikes back. And that is Erling Haaland versus Lisandro Licha the Butcher Martinez. The pundits thought that it was a physical mismatch, Obviously, people even analyzed. I saw that and I was going to analyze. I already made like a script for it, which I released yesterday, but I was thinking about okay, do I react to this? Because obviously everybody had done a good job in analyzing when they faced each other. Ajax versus Dortmund. They faced each other in the derby, most recently in the FA Cup final under Erik ten Hag. And obviously, Licha was injured for more than a year or a year or thereabout. So they didn't face each other when we lost 3-0. But you have to think about it from the fact that they've faced each other multiple times and Licha has had the upper hand. I think 3 games out of 4 or something, right? Now, the stats are staggering for this game because every time, you know, Haaland, no. So before that, obviously, the pundits thought that it would be a physical mismatch. But tactically, Michael Carrick used this to his advantage. And also, you have to give credit to Lisandro Martinez. He also used this to his advantage, right? He didn't just ask, Michael Carrick didn't ask Martinez to win a wrestling match with Haaland. He asked him to win the space. So you would notice that Licha would give subtle nudges. He would jump right in front of Haaland when he's about to win the ball or block Haaland when he's about to shoot. Right? And the one shot that Haaland had in the second half, Licha blocked it. Yeah. Like I said, the pundits thought it was a tactical mismatch. And that's one thing when you underrate a player, right? And he comes up and shows up for you. Every time Haaland tried to drop deep to link play, Martinez was there in his shadow, either pushing him down, hacking him down, nudging him. Every time Haaland tried to peel off to the back post, Martinez used his low center of gravity to stay goal side. Disrupt him, touch him, or anything whatsoever to make sure he doesn't have that momentum. The stats are really staggering for this one. Haaland, 0 shots on target, 1 shot in total all game, and that shot was blocked by Licha. He also had 14 touches in total in 80 minutes, basically, in the 80 minutes he played. And that is 8 touches in the first half and 6 touches in the second half or thereabout. Then Martinez had 100% ground duels won. He also had 100% aerial duels won. Yes, you read that right. 100% aerial duels won. That is like deep. By the time Pep Guardiola kind of substituted Haaland in the 80th minute, the toddler had effectively put the giant in his pocket and we're looking for him all game. Martinez didn't just defend, he provoked. He played with a streetwise edge that actually frustrated City, right? Picking up yellow card early, but never losing his cool, basically, right? And I don't think he was the one that picked up the yellow card. I think it was Luke Shaw that picked up the yellow card. So he didn't even get a yellow card. That's even the amazing thing. Let's have a quick look at the game. Maybe we'll get a sense of what really happened. Licha didn't pick a yellow card. The only 2 carded players were Diallo and Shaw. And that was very important. It didn't phase him at all. He was ready to play like the guy playing on the streets. This was the blueprint of stopping City. Don't fight the man, fight the supply line. And that's what I said in my match review. I said, stop the lines, the ways that the balls, like all the times that Man United have beaten City, we stop the passes to Haaland. At the point when what's his name, Kevin De Bruyne had the opportunity to pass the ball to Haaland, we'll block it. This was last season, and this season we stopped all the passing lanes. At some point, stopping all the passing lanes from Doku to stopping passing lanes from Bernardo Silva to Phil Foden, who actually got subbed off for Czechia, and Czechia was like, we're running rings around Czechia, and it was surprising, right? This was the blueprint. Now, we have to talk about the midfield engine. And when we talk about this, it's a whole piece of the entire 3 midfielders that we used, and that is Kobbie Mainoo, Casemiro, and Bruno Fernandes. We're not going to talk about this game without talking about Bruno Fernandes, right? Now, if Martinez was the shield, Kobbie Mainoo and Casemiro were the heartbeat of this team, well, at some point in the past, Ruben Amorim had also kind of inexplicably, technically frozen Mainoo out, even though it was more of the media pushing the narrative that Mainoo was frozen out. But then, Carrick came out to say that he preferred a different profile of midfielder. Kobbie Mainoo was seen to be competing with Bruno Fernandes, and at some point, it felt like Ruben Amorim was trying to manage his players in such a way that he has options on the field. So for him, for the 2 double pivot players, you have your Mainoo and Ugarte as your second string, and your first string will be Bruno and Casemiro. But with Carrick, he wanted to use all three in his 4-2-3-1. Now, the double pivot that finally worked, basically, which seemed to be that most people thought that that wouldn't work, and the media tried to push a narrative that they quoted that Ruben Amorim said that that wouldn't work, but actually it worked. Casemiro played the role of a destroyer, sitting deep and screening the defense, also pressing high when necessary. Kobbie Mainoo, what did Kobbie Mainoo do? He was the escape artist. He was the escape artist where you get the ball, give it to him, or pass the 1-2 touch, because Casemiro is a one-touch player. But another thing I did was Kobbie Mainoo. I watched Kobbie Mainoo's clip, the entire clip of all the touches he had in the game. He did what a midfielder is supposed to do, basically. Because I think I've seen a lot of people blow it up on social media saying, oh, he actually dominated and controlled the game and everything. Like, he did what a midfielder is supposed to do. So that's why I called it the collective unit, where Casemiro, Kobbie Mainoo, and Bruno Fernandes did their jobs. So they did what they needed to do to control that midfield. But when you see such an analysis and you go watch the actual game, you'll know that Kobbie Mainoo was just doing what an actual central midfielder was supposed to do. The actual dictator of the game, pointing hands at people, directing play, passing balls, creating chances, having the most touches, the most defensive contributions. Bruno Fernandes. The three midfielders had the most defensive contributions of all the team. Bruno Fernandes had 14 defensive contributions. Controlled the game as well. Created assists. Kobbie Mainoo had 9 defensive contributions. Guess who had 12? Casemiro. So whenever United won the ball back, City's counter press would swarm, and in previous weeks, United would panic and hoof long, right? But these were the games that we thrived on. But on Saturday, they gave it to Mainoo or Bruno or Casemiro whenever we won the ball from defense. His ability to turn in tight spaces as well, and play the first pass forward was the key to United's transitions. But that was pretty much the whole team, not just kind of Kobbie Mainoo playing the first pass forward, because when you watch it, you could count how many forward passes he made compared to all the other guys, Casemiro and Bruno. Not trying to downplay the fact that Kobbie Mainoo really played well in this game. He played really well in this game. Carrick instructions were simple. Play to your strengths. For Mainoo, it meant bravery. For Casemiro, it meant discipline. And together, they made sure that Phil Foden and Bernardo Silva never had the time to turn and face the United goal. And even when they had the time to turn, they were there. Casemiro and Mainoo were there to defend properly. Surprisingly and amazingly, both never got any cards. That means they played well. Even though Casemiro went into some slight tackles that you were like, oh my God, no, why'd you do that? But yeah, is what it is. The next one is the lethal transition of Mbeumo and the counter-attack. Now let's talk about the goals. Because one would think about saying things and you say, isn't it ironic or no? Would it not be a coincidence that a person like Mbeumo is back from the AFCON, Ahmad's back from the AFCON, and we're free scoring again, and we're creating chances again, but it felt like we were blunt at some point during this 1 month spell that they were away, right? Now, talking about the transition play, the counter-attack, the Mbeumo way, and all of that, we talk about the goals. Carrick had just 32% ball possession overall in the game. In the first half, at some point in the game, was 72-28. It now eventually became 32, 60, 68. To win with a little of the ball, like, one thing I'm going to say about how we scored, or how we dealt with this game, was the fact that Manchester City had more of the possession. Manchester City had more of the possession. But Man United were more dangerous, were more potent with the ball. So once they have more possession, they did nothing with the ball. Manchester United were more potent with the ball. When we had the ball, we were dangerous. We were already missing chances from the first half. Now let's talk about the first goal. 32% ball possession, no doubt. But to win with that little of the ball, your transitions have to be very flawless. And which brings to bear what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has said on Stick to Football, where he said something like, look at the games Man United have won. Most of them have been with lesser ball possession. And it comes through. Carrick's United had 32% ball possession, and guess what? We won. Goal number 1 was the 65th minute. right? It starts with the City free kick where Checky tries to chip a ball and Harry Maguire first contact to the ball, heads it, right? And it comes to nothing for Man City, but within 6 seconds, like 6 seconds, the ball is at the feet of Bruno Fernandes. How did that happen? Mbeumo gets the second touch of the ball, and that touch is just the touch that pushes the ball to Bruno, who drives through the midfield of Manchester City, running at pace with Dogu on his left, Bryan Mbeumo just running past him, and Ahmad on his right. 3 players against 2. 4 players against 3, rather. Manchester City were tracking back and running. I remember seeing a Semenyo chasing down Patrick Dogu. And guess what? Bruno does this no-look blind pass to Mbeumo, just perfectly set for him on his path, and then Mbeumo just passes into the net past Donnarumma. Right? Just to give you a bit of an understanding, right? If the ball is at the feet of Bruno under Ruben Amorim, right, Bruno would often probably lost in the number 10 without having outlets, right? For example, he would try to swing that pass almost quickly to get the ball to maybe Ahmad because he'll switch it all to the right, or probably move it to the left, depending on how you see it under Ruben Amorim, because he had a different role. But in this one, it was more of a free roaming, which I wouldn't say is different to what he was doing under Amorim, because even from all the managers Bruno has played under, he's kind of done the same thing. People have even called him a player that doesn't have positional discipline. He goes out of the shape and all of that. Like, so now everybody's accusing Amorim for keeping him controlled and keeping him measured in his approach. I mean, he missed a few passes, but he was absolutely the heartbeat of this team. Right. Now, like I said, you have Bryan Mbeumo sprinting. You have Ahmad sprinting on his right. Mbeumo ran past him by his side, waiting, watching and waiting and moving, while Dogu is on this side being chased by Antoine Semenyo. He drives through the middle of the midfield. Rodri is out of position because he was up for the free kick. Bruno slides a pass that is quite frankly a work of art. Like, there's a way, even when I play football, there's a way like even yesterday when we played, there's a way I hit the pass. The way the pass leaves my foot, the sound of the pass in my head, just like I would know I gave a good pass, right? Or a good forward pass or something, right? And without hesitating, Bruno gives that pass, and Mbeumo, playing as a central striker, doesn't even hesitate. And it's amazing that we started Mbeumo as a central striker. Doesn't hesitate. One touch into the far corner. Donnarumma is beaten. Old Trafford explodes. Everywhere goes crazy. Guess what? That was Mbeumo's first goal against Manchester City for Manchester United. His first goal against Manchester City in his career in the Premier League. Goal number 2, 76 minutes. In the 76 minutes, that's around 11 minutes later. This was a squad win, man. This was a squad win. Carrick brings on Matheus Cunha for Ahmad. Cunha, who had, been hammered by fans just the last 2-3 weeks after the Brighton loss as well, produces the moment of the match. He isolates Rico Lewis on the right. One touch. No, actually, it wasn't Rico Lewis. It was Nico O'Brien. Is that his name? Nico O'Reilly. Yeah, so let's Nico O'Reilly, and then obviously, he isolates Nico O'Reilly on the right, and obviously shifts the ball and whips in a cross that has Premier League quality written all over it. Then Patrick Dogu, the 21-year-old winger, because when I saw the Dogu play in that game, I'm going to call him our next left winger, man. He's 21. He has a lot to improve on. We definitely need a left winger. But, like, I would say Man United now need one left winger and one left back, considering what we're planning for next season. Patrick Dogu, the winger, I'll call him a winger, that pundits called a project signing, shows more hunger than the entire City backline. and sprints across the front of Rico Lewis. And that's why it was a bit confusing for me. Both names confused me, right? Nico O'Reilly and Rico Lewis, right? He sprints past Rico Lewis in his blind spot, right? And tucks in home 2-0. Game, set, match. Let's not talk about the missed chances, the offside goals, the Bryan Mbeumo opportunity that created an assist for a goal for Mount, or like Mount's first touch and everything. Let's not talk about all those ones because we missed so many chances. We had 3 goals ruled offside: Ahmad, Mount, and Bruno, right? Those Ahmad and Bruno ones, I can say they're marginally offside. But the Cunha one, the Cunha assist that was tagged as an offside, um, or that tagged Cunha offside, they never showed us the replay. They never showed us the freeze frame for how VAR reached the decision. But it is what it is. At the end of the day, we're winning 2-0. And I pretty much have this theory that they didn't want to embarrass Manchester City. 3 goals, that would have taken our goal difference to +7. But it is what it is. Now, the aftermath. A new standards kind of thing, mentality that has been set with the team. When the final whistle blew, cameras didn't go to Mbeumo or Dogu. They went straight to Michael Carrick. He didn't celebrate wildly. He shook Pep's hands, hugged his staff, including the beach-dwelling Johnny Evans. That's the thing, like, oh, my days. And he went to the Stretford end and celebrated with the fans. Now, the win changed everything. It proved that, the Ineos project players like Patrick Dogu, Senna Lamans were good enough if they are coached properly or coached correctly. But they also proved that only the old guard like Harry Maguire, Luke Shaw, still have a role to play in this squad, albeit they are kind of aging, right? But all it proved is that the silent conductor has a tactical brain that belongs at the very top level. But obviously, you know how it is with the whole Manchester United and everything, right? United moved up to 5th. Obviously, we were 4th at some point, and then Liverpool got the draw and then 1 point ahead of Man United. For a team that was 3 points ahead of Man United starting the weekend. The gloom is lifted, and more importantly, the identity is back: direct, aggressive, organized, and clinical, right? But as Carrick said in the tunnel, this is just the start. The standards are what matter now. If it was just a start, then the rest of the Premier League and the legends on the podcast better start paying attention, because Michael Carrick isn't just an interim, he's a man with a plan. But we have to also talk about different aspects of the game. The way we set up, the way we controlled the attack. Now, if we're going to go and look at the lineup, basically, just to give you a sense of the idea of how we set up. Now, we started up with Senna Lamans in net, Lisandro Martinez and Harry Maguire's 2 centre-back, which is kind of like a rejuvenation of what Erik ten Hag wanted before Licha got injured against Crystal Palace in February 2024, to Luke Shaw, who was always injured at the time, now playing 90 minutes back to back. I think he missed the Brighton game. I think he was rested for the Brighton game. And then you have Diogo Dalot, the inconsistent performer, having an okay game on the day. Now, this back 4 you're seeing, when we defended, it was more of a double team on the right with Dalot and Ahmad, and at some point, what's his name? I just noticed something now. Actually, Casemiro came off injured at the 81st minute. We didn't notice it, but the next few days we'll know. But let me just put that on the side. I'm just looking at the lineup and I see an injury sign on his name, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. And I think Nozai Majra will be back because they lost to Senegal today, so in the final. So he'll be back the next 24 hours, and they'll be preparing for. You have a couple of days to prepare, so that puts Dalot's position on that threat. So back to the lineup. You look at the lineup with the back 4 of Dalot, Maguire, Licha, Martinez, and Shaw. And when you look at that back 4, you think about how would they set up defensively. They will set up compact, but then when they go to Doku, like when Man City goes to Doku, you have Ahmad Casemiro and Diallo forming a triangle to defend Doku, or Casemiro dropping to form that back four with Maguire, Casemiro, Martinez, and Shaw, while Diallo and Ahmad kind of choke out Doku. Sometimes you see Mbeumo drop back like that to choke out Doku. When you go to the other side and they send it to Semenyo, Luke Shaw has that covered. Dogu is also back to cover Patrick Dogu. And then you also have at some point Licha, you also at some point Mainoo coming to form a triangle at some point in that defense to choke out their wings. That's kind of like blocking the outlets, right? Then you also have in the middle, when they come through the middle with Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden, you have Mainoo tracking Phil Foden, you have Licha Martinez blocking Erling Haaland, you have Maguire, Erling Haaland as well. You also have at some point Licha tracking Bernardo Silva at some point. So these were the opportunities like Bernardo Silva and so it was more like 3v3 at some point all the time, 1v1. That's three players against three players with each player marking 1v1. Then, when it now comes to how the attack happened, you would see sometimes that when City are with the ball, the first player that goes to Rodri is Bruno. And at some point, you have Bruno and Mainoo isolating Rodri. Or you have the front two in Mbeumo and Bruno isolating Rodri, coming back and then giving Kusanov and Max Alain, especially in the first half, a second thought on who to mark and all of that. That's why at some point there were so many times that Kusanov didn't was beating for pace, but that guy is so strong and he's young. I think he's 20 or 21. His age, he's 21. Yeah, I got it right. 21 from Uzbekistan. Then you also have at some point Dogu tucking in to actually create that overload against a Rodri, a Foden, or even a Bernardo Silva, in that lineup. Then you also have so at some point it looked like a 4-2-3-1, and at some point it looked like a 4-1-4-1 with Casa dropping deep and Mainoo going, or Mainoo dropping deep and Casa going, pushing up with that too, to make it an Ahmad Casa or Ahmad Mainoo, Bruno, and Dogu. Then Dogu also drops in as well, and then you also have a situation where once Mbeumo is out of position, Dogu is always up top like that. Same way, once Dogu is out of position, Ahmad is on the other side, pressing and all that. Ahmad was also a very good outlet for us. He was trying to isolate players 1v1 and all of that. So these were the things that were happening across the pitch. But the two players, Bruno and Mainoo, no, Bruno and Mbeumo coming in that two, in a 4-4-2 at some point, or 4-2-3, or 4-2-2-2. And why I say 4-2-2-2 is if Bruno pushes up, then you have your Dogo and Ahmad on this either side. You have your Mainoo and Casa on the other side. So you have Bruno and Mbeumo, piggyback off each other and press the two defenders for Manchester City. Because obviously, without playing with an out and out striker, you have an Mbeumo who has pace and all of that. You maximize his pace and as well give City something to worry about with regards to who to mark as a striker, as I said earlier. So these were the things that really happened within the game. There are some other deeper technical analysis and tactics that happened in the game that I could tell you about, but these ones are the ones that I noticed during the game. But while I was in the euphoria of enjoying the game, I thought that Man United were not going to have an opportunity to win against City, but they did the job, and that is what is most important. So let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comment section. I just thought to bring it to you. Michael Carrick actually used the masterclass. Even when he brought on someone like Cunha in the first minute for Bryan Mbeumo, it felt like a like for like change where Cunha plays as a striker while the same formation still stays and it becomes a 4-4-2 or 4-1-4-1 or 4-4-1-1 when we're defending and all of that, right? But he still had the opportunity to create chances as well. Then for Manuel Ugarte to come on, it was more of Casemiro was coming off and Manuel Ugarte, and I said obviously that it looks like Casemiro was injured. What about Aiden Heaven? Well, to give Luke Shaw a rest, and then he puts Dogo as your left back, right? Yeah, with Aiden Heaven coming on, Luke Shaw coming off at the 90th minute, it felt like we were playing Dogo as your wing back, defending with a 5. Yeah, defending with a 5. Because you had your Diallo right wing back, Dogo left wing back, Evan center back with Licha and Maguire. But then it is what it is. Heaven just came and played like 2 minutes, right? Plus the 5 minutes extra time, so it's like 7 minutes. Mason Mount coming on for I think who did Messi come on for? Messi came up in the 90th minute for someone. Bruno Fernandes. So it's kind of like 10 for 10, like for like. Is what it is. So yeah, that's pretty much what it is. And yeah, that's it. Michael Carrick actually, and just to wrap this up, we didn't have the chance to bring on a Benjamin Sheshko and Lenny Euro. And this guy was missing too. What's his name? Joshua Zirkzee. But apparently I found out he was injured and he's gonna be out for 2 weeks. So, but yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, that's pretty much the analysis of how Michael Carrick managed to win, managed to outclass and mastermind a victory against Manchester City. Let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comment section. I just had to bring it low to make it pretty simple for all to understand. But yeah, let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comment section. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please do like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't have to miss anything as it relates to all things Manchester United. I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching. And I want to say a very big thank you to you for helping us reach 3,000 subs. It's no mean feat. I really appreciate you guys. I'll do a special video for that to really say thank you for 3,000 subs. But thank you, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care, goodbye, and God bless.